We'll just give everybody about 5 more minutes to log in and then we'll get started.
How's everybody feeling? Couple weeks left in the campaign, getting down to the wire.
There is no feeling. It's a soulless, awful, disgusting game.
You're braver than I am.
It actually doesn't take much. You can just fill out a web form and you're in.
Sure, it takes more than you're giving it credit for. Come on now.
Well, they make it seem like that with the amount of money that gets thrown around, but realistically, to be a candidate for federal office, it's probably harder to get a post office box than it is to actually get yourself legally in the race. And so then when they have all these millions of dollars and people attempting to buy themselves offices, it doesn't have to be that way. And you know how it is, you get that millions of dollars of garbage in your mailbox and you throw it away. So it's kind of like the real life deal of it is if you're a normal person who says, hey, I think I might be better suited, better disposed as an individual to execute this office than the people who are currently in running, you just throw your head in and find out how it goes.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, that's news I didn't know before.
Yeah, it's a web form. It's on the FEC's website, and there you are. Ballot access is a little bit more complicated, and that Proposition 131 I'd prefer it didn't pass because that could make it very difficult. Then it will be only those who buy themselves an office will get one. But as it stands right now, it's still not a very difficult thing to accomplish, actually.
Hmm. Interesting. Well, moms, looks like we got another step. Maybe
Do
we
it.
all should jump in there.
Seriously, 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 the more we have, the better. To have just a left-right paradigm and all you've got to choose between is the Democrat and the Republican is, oh God, are we still falling for that? Is that really who has to win every time is one or the other? So it'd be better to have more choices and more viewpoints and maybe a better playing field for someone else because we've seen where they brought us and we should not keep going that way.
Jessica, can I just ask a question real quick?
Yeah, yeah.
So I had suggested when you're sending this out to moms or families, you all just had us listed. I'm not sure you didn't have any party affiliation. You just said candidate, and I had suggested that you at least identify us somehow so that people know who we are and what we were running for, like what party or so that was the one suggestion that I would give to you guys because otherwise, I have a feeling that a lot of people, well, some people don't even know which CD that they live in, but they wouldn't know which candidates are like. I'm the only candidate on here. I'm guessing from CD7, for example. So
Hmm. Yeah, so we will take that into consideration for this second town hall, bigger town hall than our first. We are trying to have our issue be appropriate for all parties, so all people can be included. So because we don't think it's a party issue, we think it's a populist issue. So I'm happy to put that in when we release it to the media if you would like. And I can talk to nationals as well to see kind of where they want to land on that topic as well. I think we'll get started. And I'll
And thanks
do
for
just kind of,
coming.
hello and welcome. My name is Jessica Kirkman Leone. I am a co-founder of the Mother Forward chapter here in Colorado. The purpose of this town hall is for residents to talk with you all candidates about issues impacting us and our families, and particularly around childcare and paid leave. Um, and I'm gonna have you all start your introductions to everybody as we start trickling in. So, ladies first, Trisha, if you would like to go first to all of our incoming new visitors, that would be great.
Absolutely. Hi, everybody. My name is Trisha Calvarese, and I'm running for Congress in my home district as a Democrat against Lauren Boebert. But I'm from the district, went to public schools there, earned a full academic scholarship to the Johns Hopkins University, was most recently working in DC, and I had the honor of working for Liz Schuler, the first woman to lead the AFL-CIO, that is the largest organization of working women in the country through COVID. So we saw how moms got us through that pandemic. They were sidelined and on the front lines. And we know and we championed care as critical infrastructure. And I got to tell you, it hit so close to home. Where I got into this race, y'all, is because both of my parents ended up getting cancer at the same time, and I moved back home to provide their end of life care. Now, they did pass last fall. And before he did, my dad, a Republican, he told me step up and to give everything back that the community has invested in me. And that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm an inspiring mom, and I know that it takes two incomes often to support a family, and we need things like affordable, accessible childcare with dignity in those jobs that pay a family supporting wage for care providers and their families. So it's wonderful to be here. I know that's critical infrastructure. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you so much, Trisha, and welcome, welcome. You're so welcome to be here. And then next we'll go with Adam Withrow. He's next on my screen.
I am Adam Withrow. I am running for Colorado's 3rd Congressional District. There's actually 3 of us from CD3 here tonight, so this should be a lot of fun. I am a contractor, back to educator, back to contractor, back to educator. And my wife and I have 4 kids, and we go back and forth on the stay-at-home parent. One goes to work, and we've been living off a single income since we had our first child. So for us, the child care issue, we like to balance that with the opportunities to support a family on a single income as well, and see where we can strike balance on that, so that when 2 people want to go and work, let it be because they want to. And when 2 people have to go and work, let's try to eliminate that. Let's make better childcare an option for people who are career oriented, both parents, and let's not make it a necessity because half of the incomes in our civilization do not support a family. So I kind of have 2 steps about it, but we'll get into that later on.
Awesome. Oh, I'm echoing. Okay. Thank you, Adam. Next on my screen, you guys switched around. We have John. Why don't you go next?
John Fabricatory, Republican, running in CD6 against Jason Crow. Spent 30 years in the government. I'm a United States Air Force veteran, 26 years as a federal agent. Decided to run in this race about a year ago. After I retired, like a couple other people on here, I became an educator as well, a substitute teacher in the Aurora School District, taught elementary school. That was way harder than being a federal agent, so I am no longer doing that. Dealing with elementary school children was definitely something that I think way more trained people need to do than someone who just decided to be a substitute teacher. My platform itself is pretty much national security issues and military issues as well as immigration issues. But I talk about the economy, I talk about energy, and you guys have met me before in another forum. The family issues are a huge issue. I am a parent. I have a 29-year-old and a 15-year-old. And I just became a grandparent. So, dealing with those issues, I've dealt with them for, the last 29 years, dealing with childcare. And now I'm dealing with it again with a grandchild.
Awesome. Thank you, John. And yeah, that second generation, it's something new. I'm young, but I'm sure it's a road all on its own. Next I have Adam Frisch on my screen. Would you like to go next with your intro?
Sure, everyone. Jessica, and to all the other organizers out there, thank you so much for making time. It's busy time for all of us. And thanks off to all the fellow candidates in the district, out of the district. We all know it's not an easy thing to do, and it takes away from valuable family time or work time or both. And so I appreciate that. It's been a 2.5-year, 72,000 mile, 50,000 mile father-son road trip across this big district here. We've been on the road 20 to 25 days a month, trying to make a conversation happen, less about Team Democrat and Team Republican and Team CD3. teamwork or team family. And that's what we've been talking about for a really long time. And we're proud to be making those connections out there. I was an independent for 20 some years until some comments were made by our current congressperson, who has since left the district and headed east, as Tricia knows, over there. As I mentioned before, I was born in
This meeting is being recorded.
I spent the first 5 years in Fort Peck Indian Reservation. My dad was in the Indian Health Service. My mom was very involved in kind of rural Head Start, and she helped integrate the Minneapolis public school system where I ended up growing up for some period of time. And I have three younger sisters and an 18-year-old son, Felix, and my daughter, 17-year-old, who's a senior in high school. And as I mentioned before, during the pre-warm-up, I'm a proud para member. When COVID started, I'm a big believer kids need to be in the classroom almost at all costs, especially those families that we're very, very focused on, I think, as a society. And so I was volunteering 2 or 3 days a week for pre-K 4 and proud to do that, and ended up putting my full-time efforts into this conversation. I'm proud to be here. I think there's a lot of conversations also, as I said in the pre-warm-up, these first 1,000 days of a person's life, to me is about as important as it gets to make sure that those are foundational health, foundational love, foundational structure in place. And
Awesome.
Thanks, Adam.
Thanks, Adam. Next we have Ron. Go ahead. It looks like, Ron, you're still muted. There you go.
Okay, am I unmuted?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So I'm Ron Tupa. I'm a candidate for Congress in Colorado's Congressional District 7, which is just west of Denver, and then go south a little bit. But the big counties are like Broomfield, Jeffco, and then Teller, Park Lake, Custer, Chaffee down south. I'm a former Colorado state representative and state senator. I'm a former Democrat. I'm now unaffiliated, and I'm running as a Unity Party member like Adam Adam right there in CD3. I would have stayed independent if I could and stayed unaffiliated, but it's harder to gain ballot access. So these are a lot of state laws. Actually, some of them I passed, but the Democrats have made it harder for independents to get on the ballot. So I affiliated with the Unity Party. But I'm kind of done with party politics. I'm progressive. I lean to the left. Childcare has been an issue for me when I was in office. I passed some legislation to increase the amount for the child care CCAP program. Obviously, I've been following what they do at the federal level. I think I have AI talking to me. Are you guys hearing that?
Just I heard once. I bet it's a little distracting, though.
I don't understand. I have AI talking to me, you guys, here and there. I could search the web for it.
I think that's Siri talking to me.
Maybe she thought you were talking to her.
I'm so sorry. I tried to get rid of that.
That's okay. Don't worry about it.
My kids are 18 and 17. I'm a single dad. I think I remember when it cost $1,000 per child for childcare. So it's very expensive. And if I get elected to Congress, this is an area that we need to be putting more resources in at the federal level. And part of my disagreement, well, I'll get into my disagreement with Congress.
Thanks, Ron. Yes, yeah. Thank you. And then last on my screen I have James Wiley. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is James Wiley. I'm running as the Libertarian candidate in Congressional District 3. You can find my website, jamesforpeace.com. Main things I want to talk today specifically to the audience about is, of course, the issue of childcare and where that needs to come from within a society, and the importance of removing the state from that process. I want to talk about schools in general and the importance of not having the government involved in schooling whatsoever. Zero involvement is my goal. And of course, I would like to just touch on the issue of abortion, because that is so polarizing in our world today. And I'd like to advocate for abortion rights to the extent that no abortion causes the death of any child. So those are my main points that I want to present today from the libertarian perspective, and challenge communities and individuals to take responsibility, personal responsibility for themselves. Liberty only goes so far. As long as somebody is personally responsible, it can go much, much further. And in a society of many individuals taking personal responsibility and leading their own lives, governing themselves, we have a real opportunity for a peaceful society. And that's what I advocate for primarily through my campaign, James for Peace.
Thank you, James. And now that we have done an introduction, I will move on to these starting questions. So, I am Jessica Kirkman Leone. I am a licensed clinical social worker and an infant mental health endorsed childhood specialist. I am the co-founder of the Colorado chapter of Mother Forward, along with Katie. And I serve kids 0 to 6, and I have 2 boys who are under the age of 10. And when they were born, I had to almost choose between this work that I love and needs attention and support and the well-being of my children. And I was lucky enough to find supportive people in my life that I didn't have to choose, but I also know that that's not the reality for the majority of the people that I serve. So the first question, you'll have about 15 to 20 seconds. It'll be a yes or no. And then each of you will have about 15 to 20 seconds to explain your yes or no. And then we'll get into individual questions for candidates from specific moms. So the first one is high quality childcare and early learning programs are proven to dramatically improve a child's opportunities for a better future while offering parents improved job stability and overall economic security. Do you support a permanent and fully funded childcare system in your state and in this country? Yes or no? And you can come off mute. You can do it however you would like. I noticed Trisha, if you would like to go
Yes.
first.
Like resounding yes. Yep. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Adam, I saw your hand raised. Go ahead.
Yes.
Thank you. Adam Frisch gives a
Yes,
thumbs up.
too.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know how it works. So yes, and we can actually put more money at the federal level into the Department of Human Health and Human Services, which funds the child care funding.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. And James, what about you? Yes or no to that question?
No, abolish the Department of Education entirely. It's the responsibility of churches, communities, and families to take care of and take responsibility for the education and development of their youth.
All right, thank you. Our next question is, research shows the benefits of paid paternal leave and maternal leave increases employee commitment and cooperation, reduces absenteeism in the workforce for both men and women, and helps companies attract and retain top talent and thus lowering turnover and hiring costs. Do you believe we should have paid parental leave in this country? Yes or no?
Yes. It's our economy depends on it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yes. There's no other way.
Thank you.
Yes, we should have paternal leave. We should have maternal leave. Absolutely.
Yeah, both I think are important. Thank you, John. Who would like to go next?
Yeah, I support, if you're talking about maybe the FMLA law that's being proposed in Washington to pay for Family Medical Leave Act. Yes, I support that. I'd co-sponsor that.
Thank you.
Ron was right about it. If there's a specific bill, yes. Hopefully a lot of this can be handled at the state level, but I appreciate not all states can do that or are in a good shape as Colorado.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. James, would you like to go?
Sure. I do support it to the extent that it already exists. Private industry has the opportunity to provide paid parental leave to its employees. The government has no responsibility in that whatsoever and should be abolished.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you. And in the chat, if you would like more information about Mother Forward and want to get involved for our participants, there is a link that you can log into and register for more information. So next we'll move on to specific questions to specific candidates. So we'll start with Dr. Sarah Coakley, and she'll do a quick intro and then she will lead the question next.
Thank you. My name is Sarah Coakley. I'm a mom. I have a 12-year-old middle schooler who is neurodiverse. And I am an anesthesiologist by training, but even with, a postdoc degree, I had to make the choice to not choose a partnership track so that I could spend time with my child and not be co-parenting with a nanny. So that's kind of how I got involved with this. My question is actually for James Wiley. James, between 1991 and 2024, the price of daycare rose at nearly twice the overall rate of inflation. How would you address the issue of runaway costs for daycare?
This is a huge concern, and we're seeing a lack of supply and an increase in demand for these types of services. And we need to realize that the number one obstacle to the providing of these services is the government itself, and particularly when the government steps in and overregulates certain industries. We need a robust private industry that's able to self-regulate in the sense that there is the litigious opportunity for violators to be aggressively prosecuted for any crimes that they commit or violations of individual civil rights. And that environment is self-regulating, of course. An anarchist or libertarian world does not exist in the absence of law, but it exists in the absence of the state enforcement. And so we have the opportunity for private courts within communities to take on instances of bad actors and hold them accountable. But the deregulation of the industry will produce a renaissance of diversity and the unique offerings that are provided for children based on the uniqueness of their interests. There's a nonprofit, for example, in Pueblo, Colorado, that enables youth, troubled youth, people in their teens, and this isn't specific to daycare, but it could be included at a younger age where kids are maybe interested in mountain biking. But these teenagers are provided the opportunity to ride dirt bikes and avoid getting involved in after school activities that might lead to gang or other types of influences here in Pueblo, Colorado. And so our youth, whether they're interested in arts, music, sports, or anything else, can have daycare programs tailored specifically to their needs, and that can be provided by the free market, and the private industry can solve those problems at the unique and provide unique solutions that meet the community where they are and the interests of the community where they are. If we have the federal government stepping in and saying we're going to pay for all of this, all we're going to have is a much higher rate of inflation. We saw this with the university education. The more and more state and federal governments pay for university education, the higher the price becomes.
Thank you, James. We're going to give the opportunity if any other candidates want to chime in or rebut a point or add anything. You have 30 seconds, so please keep it short.
Well,
Go for it, Adam.
I'll just say I think James is right in the fact that there's a lack of supply in the government regulations for home health care and whether it's elder care or child care. The regulations have strangled the ability for small business and small entrepreneurs to be able to open up the ability to have more supply. The demand for housing, the demand for child care is not going to change anytime soon, especially in Western Southern Colorado. So we do need to figure out how to increase supply. And part of that supply increase is making sure that we have some realistic regulations about who can take care of somebody. And the regulatory industrial complex is killing the supply, which is increasing prices.
Thank you, Adam. Adam Withrow, would you like to go next too?
These are all, I could see if you live in a really comfortable area, that stuff sounds great. But I live in the part of Pueblo where people get shot. And you hear gunshots off my porch every couple of days. The private industry doesn't care about the people down here. That's straight up. There is no market for that. What you got to do when you look at that cost of childcare, there's two things that can be addressed by one thing. You say, okay, right now with gangs, it's more lucrative than a job. So with a federal living wage, then a job is more lucrative than gang membership. If that wage is tied to the consumer price index, if the prices rise and the consumer price index includes childcare, then wages necessarily rise along with them. And what that does is clamp down on the incentive for price jacking all around. It also gives more people the opportunity to stay home, have a single income household, and cut into that demand for childcare because a job can pay enough for a family.
Thank you. Ooh, right on time. Awesome. And we will move on to the next question. Sarah will be asking another one. So Dr. Sarah Coakley, if you would like to ask your next question, go right ahead.
Sure. And this one is actually for Adam Frisch. The shortage of workers in the child care sector remains acute, as we've said. Workers in the sector earn less than $15 per hour, well below the minimum wage in many areas. This raises the question about the ability of child care centers to attract and retain workers in an already tight labor market. What is your plan to support early childhood educators and child care providers so that teachers have dignified, livable wages and providers can keep their doors open?
Yeah, thanks, sir. As you know, of all these 8 districts in Colorado, we're the only one that doesn't be part of the Denver metro area complex. And so we truly are rural. Even Pueblo and Grand Junction aren't really big city areas. And again, we need more supply. I want to be very careful about trying to set wages in Grand Junction or Pueblo or Montrose, where I am now, from the federal government. But we need to figure out how to create a regulatory environment that encourages more people coming into the industry. And some of it is we need to figure out a way that the pay can be supported to make sure that you actually have professional people in there. But the licensing ability has to be able to be easier, because there is a lot of community unofficial or kind of community-based childcare that's happening. We have moms and dads who are trading off and kind of doing it like old school, where they're watching their kids and they're watching their families. I hear this all the time as I'm door knocking and seeing there's mothers or sometimes some fathers watching 4 or 5 kids, and they're always all their neighbors. And so I think that is a great ability to do that, which it's less about trying to make the money than it is try to figure out a way to share this around, because our problem here in rural Colorado is to charge $20 an hour, to be charged $20 an hour for childcare, and you're only making $18 an hour. There's a problem on that side of things. That economics are not working out. And to what you say, doctor, the other side of the economic factor is how do we make sure that we can continue to attract more people to get into the industry, and that has to do with pay. And that's a conversation that we have to figure out how we can make sure that we can attract more people, because at the end of the day, regardless of our different philosophical views are, I think we all agree more supply is what we all need, especially in the rural parts of our district.
Thank you. And then if anyone would like to rebut or have a second comment, feel free to do so. Go ahead, Adam W.
We're getting back to, you keep hearing that thing about market, and we're kind of ignoring the humanity of this situation. We let the market do its thing, and this is where it's gotten us. To think that we're going to leave it to the markets and that somehow they're going to stop doing what they do to us. You can be on, like some of us here, the receiving end of the market, or you can be like the rest of us here, where the market is taking from us. There's a point where we have to, instead of just saying, well, we'll find a way, just put me in there, say, if you establish a living wage, I know I just said it, if you establish a federal living wage, then people can choose childcare because it's what they want to do. Then they don't have to go leave that job they love to make more money elsewhere.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to comment on this one before we move on? James, I
Ma'am.
see your hand raised. Go ahead.
Thanks. I just want to, might seem a little bit irrelevant, but it's actually very important that we consider the Federal Reserve and the lack of a gold standard within our country as the primary cause of this ever rising cost of services and the need for the increase in the value assigned to labor. I've got a Morgan silver dollar in my pocket, which used to be a day's, or depending on what you did for work, a week's wage, and you could afford anything that you needed in life with the basic real currency that had real value and a very high percentage of silver in it. And if we're able to actually value people's labor as opposed to stealing from their future labor, which inflation is and the Federal Reserve's endless printing represents, we're going to have a much better life for everybody involved, whether the service provider or the the families that are paying for the services.
Thank you.
I would also say we should amend the Labor Standards Act to give care workers the right to organize themselves, give that back to the people so that they have a right to stand together in co-ops to demand dignity on the job, protection on the job, and to be able to bargain for wages. I mean, that's getting the government out of it. That's giving it back to the people who are providing the services on the ground.
Thank you, Trisha. Thank you, James. I don't see anybody else wanting to go. So next I'll introduce Katie Moses, and she is going to do the next question after just a quick intro about who she is.
Hey everyone, I'm Katie, co-founder of the Colorado chapter of Mother Forward. I am a licensed clinical social worker, mom of one boy. When I gave birth, I received 0 weeks of paid leave because it was right before the Family Act went into effect in Colorado. So I had to return to work way before I was emotionally or physically recovered from giving birth. And it was absolutely the most horrific experience of my life. I also had to leave the workforce shortly after because of the cost of childcare. We hired a nanny who was fabulous, but she was our only option because the wait lists for childcare were 2 to 3 years everywhere I called. That's a little about my experience. My question is for Ron. I am wondering, I know it's been a little bit since you had very little ones, but I'm wondering if you can share a little bit about your experience finding and paying for childcare with your own children, and if you were elected currently, what you would do about it in terms of the cost of childcare.
Yeah, so thanks. And I'll actually hit on that answer and answer a couple of those other questions that came up before. Um, I mean, the government, it's all about government priorities. The budget that the federal government passes or the state passes, it's a moral document. And if the government doesn't put a priority on education, K through 12, and I was a teacher for 15 plus years, and childcare, where I spent $1,000 per child. So I'm going to guess it's roughly still $1,000 per kid.
Way more.
Is it more per child? How
Yep.
much more? What do you pay?
Per month?
Hi.
Yes, per month.
Go ahead, Claire.
My name is Claire Campbell. I am a nurse at Children's Hospital Colorado. I will let you know that when I'm the mother of 2 boys, and one of them is currently in the daycare system. And in that first year of having 2 children in the daycare system, we paid over $30,000 for childcare part-time.
Okay,
with a nurse's salary.
I remember it was more for an infant than a child. So I'm guessing my little toddler or whatever was $1,000 a month. But let's get back to the real issue. Most families cannot afford that. When I was divorced, I was making better income than I was as a teacher. It would have been very hard for me to pay that as a teacher. And we split it. We had 2 kids. She paid for one, I paid for the other. But it would be very difficult for a family to pay more money. So when we say pay child care providers, people that work in child care centers more, I'm 100% for that. I mean, we definitely need to pay them more. The question is families couldn't afford it if you charge families more. So the only factor in here that has to weigh in is the government, and the government has to subsidize this, just like we subsidize K through 12 education. So to answer this question, the federal government has plenty of money to pay for this, and the state of Colorado also has plenty of money to pay for this. They just don't. They put it in other priorities. And if I have more time, I'll get to that when I answer another question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Anyone like to have a comment? I see James, your hand is raised. Trisha, your hand is raised. Why don't we start with James and then we can go with you next, Trisha. Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to respond to the concept of there being plenty of money, or as some chairman of the Federal Reserve have said an unlimited amount of money at the Federal Reserve. There isn't. That money might be printed, but it comes at the expense of the people. And if that's tax dollars paying for it or future debt obligations paying for it, that money isn't unlimited. It's not plentiful. We're in an economic crisis at the moment, and I think we need to be creative and come around each other to support each other and use non-taxable efforts and community organizations to try to care for the needs of our children and move away from the idea that government subsidy is going to assist this problem when in fact it'll just raise the price at a ever accelerating rate.
Thank you, James. Go ahead, Trisha. Yeah.
And Katie, I just wanted to speak a little bit to your experience of recovering as a mom. We have maternal care deserts throughout my region where women today are being told, oh, you want to have a child in your county? Too bad. You got to go to Kansas. That's unacceptable in 2024. So, and we also need to be taking care of our moms. And I'll tell you what, my life began in rural Sterling, where my dad was the city attorney, and year before I was born, mom had an ectopic pregnancy. So thank God there was a surgeon there that night because that procedure saved her life and made mine possible the next year. There continues to be a desert and a shortage of care providers on the Eastern Plains that is just hurting us so badly. So it's an emergency and a crisis. So thank you for sharing. Thank you so much, Katie.
Thank you, Trisha. Anyone else want to comment to this one before we move on? Okay.
I think just
Go ahead.
to say that I think overall, housing has turned into an economic driver for realizing that housing needs to be worked on by the private sector and they cannot rely on the government to just do everything. And so you're starting to see businesses making some economic decisions about housing. I do believe childcare is just a couple of years behind this conversation. At the Pueblo Community Hospital, they ended up building a childcare center across the district. You can do those in these medium-sized towns. It's not easy to do in the ruralest parts, as Trisha knows out there. And so at the end of the day, the more that the business community realizes, and this is not a matter of calling it free market or anti-market, it's just a matter of business common sense realizes that in addition to paying people a wage, and treating them with respect and following the laws, as long as there's going to be competition to hire good people, and there's still a labor shortage here in Colorado, I'm hoping to see more economically driven decisions to see the private sector continue to try to figure out how to add childcare. It's mostly going to work for our larger employees, so we still have to work on that.
Thank you, Adam. Adam, yes, would you like to go?
All that is really cute in excessively opulent areas, but you know what they call the private sector in a place like Walsenburg? You know what they call the private sector in a place like Colbrand? And you think that those people care anything about their employees' ability to take care of their children? What you call the private sector, we got 730,000 people in this district to 750. We got 2 towns over 60,000 people. When you go to all these little places out here, what they call the private sector is a couple families that hold all clout, all power, all money in the whole area. You got a couple of struggling small businesses. This private sector that exists in the affluent and urban world does not exist for the majority of people in the 3rd congressional district. And so it's like, oh, these are great. Yeah, I think that'll really work. And it's for upper middle class jobs. I think that's great. But when 50% of the population, the individual income is less than 30 grand a year, this does not apply to them. This is pretending they don't exist.
Thank you, Adam. We are going to move on to the next question. We are going to kind of switch gears into paid leave. And then our first question is from Dr. Sarah Coakley. Sarah, you're on mute. It's okay, technology, we get it.
Okay. The United States is just one of 7 countries in the world without paid maternity leave and one of 83 without paid paternity leave. For those countries with mandatory paid paternal leave, the average time is 29 weeks for maternity leave and 16 weeks for paternity leave. In the US, Family Medical Leave, FMLA, guarantees workers access up to 12 weeks of unpaid leave. Only 50%, 56% of American workers are eligible for this. How much paid leave do you support for families? And this question we're asking Mr. Adam Withrow.
If we can federally subsidize paid leave, let me say it like this. When my first child was born, I was at work. He was born at my house. I was at work the next day. I was halfway across the country when he turned 14 days old. I was gone. I had to because that's how I made a living. When my second child was born, I was at work, I think 3 days later. We actually had that one in the hospital. I'll never do that again. When my third child was born, he was born at home again. I started night shifts at the Orfano County Sheriff's Department 2 days after that and would work 10 out of 11 days as a detention officer. I have never had paid paternity leave. My wife, where she stays home, so now here she is. She's on maternity leave. What? No, she's taking care of the rest of our kids, is what's happening. And this is with nothing behind us, nothing underneath us, but the money we make right there. My fourth child, my daughter Cleve, it's right over here. She was born here in this living room, 8 feet from where I'm sitting now. I was back to work in 5, 6 days. And long, long hours, before the sun comes up to when the sun goes down. Uh, we spend so much money propping up other governments around the world. We spend money on killing people around the world, billions of dollars. We spend money arming for murder what we could spend taking care of our people. We do have the money and it's being directed towards evil ends. What we have to do is contract overseas empire and focus on a better life for ourselves. Yes, we can afford it, and yes, we need it. As for how long, God, I never got it, so I don't know.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Would anybody else? Yeah, John, go ahead.
Yeah, so I would say 12 weeks being the minimum, and I'm going to agree with Adam Withrow on a few of those points that we spend billions of dollars overseas on projects and different things that our taxpayer dollars should not be spent on. I'm a very small government guy. I don't want to increase taxes at all, but the tax money that we are spending is being spent needlessly in many other countries and many other places when it can be brought here back to the United States and spent on United States citizens. And one of those things that it could be spent on is definitely a leave act for sure. So, I think it's ridiculous that mothers need to worry about not getting a paycheck when they are sitting at home with a newborn. That's more stress than they need. And it's also stressful on the father, who then has to make sure that he goes to work to cover two salaries, and he's going to have to work extra hours, and he's going to have to do other things and not be around his children. So, as a country, we need to figure this out. I'm very against raising our taxes, so we have to figure out a way to do this with the tax base that we have right now.
Thank you, John. Yeah, go ahead, Ron.
Yeah, so this is going back to priorities. So I'm going to guess absolutely nobody on this panel knows that the budget that we just passed, that the incumbent Congresswoman is Brittany Pedersen, that she voted for, I would have voted against, because it's giving almost $1 trillion to the Department of Defense. So it's $1 trillion going to war and defense. That was a 4% increase. I'm going to guess none of you know this because it wasn't in the newspaper, but that same budget that she voted for decreased Health and Human Services by 1%. So whatever child care funding is coming from the federal government, she just voted to cut it, but she voted to increase the Department of Defense spending. And all the Republicans voted for that, and most of the Democrats voted for it as well. So my point is, this is simply a matter of priorities. So if your priority is children and families and old people and kids, you would not be voting for these budgets. You'd be voting against those budgets. I would have voted against that budget.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And we are gonna, oh, go ahead, James.
I just want to say, if we had sound money, we wouldn't have the issue of both parents having to work, the father could stay home and take care of excuse me, the mother could stay home and take care of the family, and the father could go and earn enough to have two cars, a mortgage, and a barbecue on the weekends. That's no longer the case because of the Federal Reserve.
Thank you, James.
I'm going to hop on really fast, even though I absolutely love these rebuttals and great conversations we're having. I do want to just pay attention to time and leave time for questions from the audience. So for the last two questions, I'm just going to have them directly to the candidate and no rebuttals or chiming in, just to save time for the audience, even though I love these conversations. All right.
Thank you. Our next question is going to come from Kelly.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kelly Agnew. I'm a mom of one. I've struggled to find safe and affordable childcare. I've been through 3 childcare providers in the first year of my daughter's life over the last year, but was really fortunate to benefit from the paid leave program that we have in Colorado. And my question is about paid leave, and it's for Trisha. So according to the U.S. Department of Labor, 73% of private sector workers and 95% of low-wage workers have no access to paid family leave. What have you done or will you do to ensure we all have the opportunity to care for our families without jeopardizing our economic security?
Yeah, absolutely. I will work with anybody across the aisle to make sure that there is paid family leave. This is something that is so personal for me. I know we've been talking about it within the context of childcare, but I had a family emergency. I didn't think my mom was going to get pancreatic cancer when my dad already had kidney cancer. And I'm an only child. I'm an only kid. And I was, living in Washington, D.C. at the time. So there's different state laws. Like I will never forget, I'll just share this one incident where mom didn't quite make it to the bathroom. Dad threw up on the stairs. Somebody was literally at the door. I was on the phone, and it was like with a healthcare provider trying to fill out these forms for FMLA. And they were like, you need to fax the form, which like, I am an elder millennial. And I was just like, and you're going to add a fax to insult the industry, like on top of it? I don't think so. Like, we need to change it. So, whatever I can. And can I tell you, I will work with the labor movement. They understand this is an economic issue. They absolutely understand that. But also with folks who are doing good work like Melinda Gates, right? Who has a Pivotal Ventures Foundation, who's looking at creative ways where we can start to address paid family leave somehow and getting better providers. I would say we need better training pathways, right? We need to make these good careers that lead to other jobs that are family supporting and sustaining for our care providers. Absolutely. So I will work with anybody to move the ball forward. This is something that keeps me up at night, and it's deeply personal. Thank you for asking.
Thank you, Trisha. And then our last question is going to be asked by Katie. And then we'll open it up for every person to ask questions and for each one of you to answer however you would like for the last 10 minutes.
John Fabricatori, this question is for you. 65% of children 5 and under have both parents in the workforce. As a parent yourself, did you have access to paid leave? And if so, how much? If not, what did you and your family do about that? And what would you do about this issue if you were elected?
Yeah, so I did have paid leave. So I worked for the federal government, and I was able to save up a lot of leave before my wife's pregnancy, sick leave and annual leave, and then was able to use that. I had the opportunity to stay home for a good amount of time when both my children were born. So for me, I know how important that is. And it's something that I want to see for other parents as well. And another thing that the federal government does is, they build a lot of child care daycare centers at federal facilities. So, and then they subsidize that program for federal employees. So, you then have your child, like when I worked down, I was working on an Oklahoma City bombing trial, to give you an example. My son was in the daycare in the next federal building across from where I worked, and I would go and have lunch with him. So, I mean, that's something I think that a lot of parents really need. I would love to incentivize businesses, give tax incentives for businesses to actually build daycares in their businesses so that parents can then visit their children and not have to be away from their children all day. I think that there's really a lot we can do there. But again, we need to figure it out without upping our taxes and bringing back more money into the U.S. by not spending so much money overseas.
Please go up to bed.
I don't want to go to bed.
I had to mute her. Thank you, John. And we will open it up to any other questions from the attendees, and any candidate can answer. So whoever would like to pop in is welcome to unmute and ask your question, or you can put it in the chat if that feels better.
Hi, I'm Heather Holland. Sorry, my husband is working tonight and my son came out of bed. I am mother of two children. I have a 4-year-old, he's in preschool, and I have a 6-month-old. I am the primary provider for my household, and I actually lost my job during both pregnancies. 2020 was COVID, and so my paid leave was a short-term disability policy. That did not transfer. I could not continue that policy when I was let go. And so, mommy's talking. So I was unable to have any paid time off. I was lucky to find a job during the pandemic and be able to continue working. I took a lateral career move. My second, I was working at the director level. I was working for a company that was very unstable, and I was lucky enough to find a new job 8 months pregnant. I had to take a demotion from director level to supervisor level. And so I was lucky enough with the Colorado family leave to be able to take off 12 weeks. And I was so fortunate that both of my employers supported me during my pregnancy, allowed me to take some time off. I took 6 weeks off when this one was born. I was able to take the full 12 weeks because of Colorado family leave. But my question is around FMLA and what are we going to do to actually change this? Only approximately 56% of workers are eligible for FMLA because you have to have 50 or more employees. I've worked for a lot of small companies. You have to be there for at least 12 months and have to have worked 1,250 hours. So this leaves a significant portion of the workforce, specifically small businesses or part-time jobs, that leave no job protections. And it really makes it tough for the families.
Is that my M?
That is an M for Miles. Sorry, his name is Miles. So sorry. I want to know what specific actions that you will take to strengthen protections for pregnant workers and ensure that employers are held accountable for this ongoing issue.
I think we need to, because you see it. I mean, we dealt with it. My last kid, my wife had that temporary disability because we had just traded places when I was staying home with the kids and had been for a couple of years. And she was working as an optician with an eye doctor. And when this baby Clee was born, that's what she had. And so, of course, what we do in this case is it's like, okay, time for me to go back to work. I've got enough contacts in the industry to just do that. But not everybody has the opportunities that we do. Not everybody has the skills that we do. And we have to take it into consideration. You know it, that just because your situation was able to be sound doesn't mean that it's like that for everybody. When we sit there, all these people, they want to talk about either free enterprise or let's stimulate the private sector. It's like, yeah, but go to any small town. And it's like you say, when FMLA, it's 50 employees or more, 12 months on the job or more. That is completely vulgar and obscene. What we need is something that functions closer to the way that unemployment does, honestly. And it can be optional for those people that have those private things. I think that's really great. That's cute for all of them. But for those who do not, which amount to the majority of people, there needs to be something. Because it's not fair. It's every small business. So you go to every small town, there's no such thing as an employer over 50 people. So FMLA isn't going to work for any of them. Some of those employers are so small, they honestly couldn't afford to do it if it was mandated. So we can't really do it that way. And it comes back to the issue that we spend enough money killing Palestinians to fund this program. We spend enough money keeping Ukraine on the map and its current borders to do this program. We spend enough money arming Taiwan to do this program. And why? What is it that's so dangerous about them that we can ignore our own citizens to make sure that they're okay? We need a complete realignment of federal priorities to actually care about us instead of selling guns around the world.
And Heather, I
Thank
do
you.
add, I want to amplify and highlight in 2023 a law passed. So the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act of 2023, which is a federal law mandating certain accommodations for pregnant workers. So that's a recent law on the books. That's something I think that anybody in federal office needs to make sure that folks know that is the law now, like it is illegal to discriminate against pregnant workers. But what I'm also hearing from you is a story about workplace opportunities, right? As a mom, because as a lot of women know, right? It's your career pathway isn't a straight pathway. Like you kind of come on, come off if you're, taking care of the family. We need better pathways that meet moms wherever they are in their journey if they want to get back into the workforce with an excellent job that meets them with their art and that there's ladders up into an excellent career if that's what they want.
Thank you, Trisha. Anyone else want to comment on this question before we close out? Go ahead, Ron.
Yeah, I think Adam hit the nail on the head. It's probably going to be something with unemployment insurance, UI. And, the state of Colorado, we're a progressive state, so obviously we've got a little bit more protection here than other states. But at the federal level, the 12 weeks, I think John Fabricatore said he would be supportive of that. I would certainly be supportive of requiring 12 weeks of paid leave. And how do you do that, Heather? Well, it's easy to do. It's in the tax code. We give about 1,000 pages of deductions for businesses in the tax code. So if you talk to anyone who's running for office that says that these can't be done because there's like no money, they're lying to you. I mean, I spent 14 years in the state of Colorado in the legislature. I chaired the audit committee in the legislature. There's always money there. There is always money to do these things. The problem is the special interest groups always have more money than you do, so they get the laws written on their behalf, and you don't. You get screwed. What I'm telling you is my 14 years in office at the state level, where half of the U.S. Congress came out of the state level legislatures, there's ways to fund all of these programs that you are talking about. The money is there. It's being directed in other areas. So talk to whoever is running in your area, Heather. If that's not me, talk to your candidate and get some assurance from them that they would vote to do this and not just tell you that they're going to vote to do this to get your vote.
I'm actually leading local La Plata County initiatives, and we are working to make change. We have an issue on the ballot. I've been doing door knocking. I've been involved in city council meetings. So I am trying to definitely make my voice heard. I appreciate knowing to keep moving it up the ladder.
Yeah, and can I just ask, are the hosts providing our contact information for people that want to get a hold of us? Because I spend an entire email chain getting back to constituents and people that want to vote, and they don't understand issues, and I explain them, and it takes time to do that. But I'd be happy to talk to anybody in CD7 that's on this call about how this gets done. It's hard to do it in 10 seconds or 15 seconds, but happy to do
Yeah,
it.
we will definitely send out your email.
Thank you.
And feel free, if any of the candidates want to put their website or their email or anything in the chat, please feel free to do that too.
Awesome. Thank you. We are at time. I do want to give a quick shout out to each and every one of you, candidates and members and moms joining from all over Colorado. We appreciate you being here. We know these issues are big and heavy and hard to talk about, but we love the enthusiasm and we love moving forward. And then Adam, I saw that you came off mute. Is there one last thing you would like to say?
I was just gonna gratitude for everyone's time. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Awesome. So if there's anything else, please feel free to just pop off mute, let us know. And if
So
not,
during World War II, the U.S. funded universal child care so mothers could work in those factory vacancy jobs. In 1971, Congress passed universal child care legislation that was vetoed by Nixon. We can absolutely do this. So thank you so much.
thank you, Trisha. All right, thank you, everybody. It looks like there's a bunch of contact information in the chat, and otherwise I will let you sign off. Thank you all so much.
Thank
Buena
you.
note.
I appreciate everyone hopping on this call tonight.
Thank you so much for your time. It's not easy on a weekday.
Have a great
Doctor,
evening.
for everything you do. To the fellow candidates, best of luck out there.
You too, Adam. Thank you.
Thank you guys for having me. This was lots of fun.
Thank
Of
you.
It
course,
was so
thank
wonderful
you.
having you here.
All right, I'm gonna end the meeting, and I will see you all. I'll see my moms later, and then I will do some follow-up thank yous for the candidates as well. Bye, thank
Yeah.
you.